Have you ever felt there's more to life than what you see? In this video, you'll travel with me through the timeless wisdom of Buddhism, from the life of the awakened one, to the path that frees from suffering, to how you can bring deep peace into your busy, everyday life. Each chapter unfolds a piece of the map to inner freedom. By the end, you'll see how silence, awareness, and compassion can transform your world, ready to awaken. The hidden strength of silence. Silence is not just the absence of words, it is a presence in itself, a living space where the mind can rest and the heart can grow. In our world today, filled with endless noise and constant notifications, silence feels uncomfortable for many people. Yet in Buddhism, silence is seen as a source of power, not weakness. When we remain silent, we create space to observe. We begin to notice the thoughts that run through our mind, the emotions that rise and fade, the subtle energy that moves within us. This awareness is the first step toward wisdom. If we are always speaking, always explaining, we leave no room for listening. True listening begins in silence. The Buddha himself often taught through silence. There were moments when questions were asked, and instead of responding with words, he remained still. His silence carried more weight than any long explanation. It was a way of showing that some truths are beyond language, and they can only be understood in the quiet space of inner reflection. In silence, we also protect our energy. Words are powerful. They can heal or they can harm. Every time we speak, we give away a part of ourselves. When we talk without awareness, we scatter our strength, making it harder to stay centered. But when we choose silence wisely, we preserve that strength and it grows within us like a hidden flame. Think of a tree. It does not announce its growth every day, it stands silently, and yet, inside, life is moving. Roots are deepening, branches are reaching for the sky. Silence works the same way in us. Growth does not always need to be spoken. Sometimes the most profound changes happen quietly, invisible to others, but deeply real. This hidden strength of silence is not about cutting yourself off from the world. It is about learning when to speak and when not to. It is about knowing that not everything needs to be shared. Some experiences are too sacred, too delicate to be put into words. By keeping them in silence, we honor them. We let them shape us from within. Buddhist monks often spend long periods in silence, not as punishment but as liberation. They discover that silence clears the mind, sharpens awareness, and deepens compassion. When you do not rush to fill every moment with words, you begin to hear life itself, the sound of your breath, the rustling of leaves, the beating of your heart. These are reminders that existence is alive in every moment, and silence is the key that opens the door to experiencing it fully. To embrace silence is to embrace strength. It is to understand that you do not need to explain yourself to everyone, that your peace does not depend on others' opinions. Silence teaches self-control, patience, and confidence. It shows that power is not in the loudest voice, but in the one who knows when to remain quiet. Why we talk too much, the roots of restlessness. Have you ever noticed how often people speak just to fill the silence? It is as if quietness feels like a threat. Many of us start talking not because we have something meaningful to say, but because we are uncomfortable with stillness. Buddhism helps us see that behind this constant need to talk lies restlessness, a mind that does not know how to settle. The Buddha described the human mind as being like a restless monkey, always jumping from one branch to another. Our thoughts leap from the past to the future, rarely staying in the present moment. When the mind is restless, words become a way to release the tension. We speak to distract ourselves, to avoid facing what is inside us. This is why so many conversations feel empty. They are not born from presence but from unease. Another root of constant talking is fear. We fear being misunderstood, ignored, or unseen. By talking too much, we try to control how others see us. We reveal details of our life, our plans, our struggles, as if by sharing them we could prove our worth. But instead of creating connection, this often weakens us. The more we expose, the more we depend on others' reactions. Silence, on the other hand, teaches independence. It allows us to be whole without needing constant approval. Ego also plays a powerful role. Words can become a tool to display knowledge, to appear important, to prove that we exist. But Buddhism reminds us that the self we defend so strongly is not as solid as we think. When we are attached to our ego, silence feels threatening. Because in silence there is no stage, no audience, no performance. To embrace silence is to loosen the grip of ego, to discover that we are more than the stories we tell. There is also habit. In modern society, talking is encouraged from childhood. We are taught to share our thoughts, express our feelings, explain our decisions. While communication is valuable, it can turn into constant chatter if we are not mindful. We learn to speak more than we learn to listen. And without balance, speech becomes noise. From a Buddhist perspective, this endless talking feeds suffering. When the mind cannot rest, when it always seeks escape through words, it never touches the depth of peace. True happiness does not need to be announced or explained. It is felt in the quiet confidence of knowing who you are without having to declare it. This is why silence is so powerful. It breaks the cycle of restlessness. It teaches us to face ourselves without distraction. It allows us to see that our worth is not in the stories we tell, but in the awareness that watches them rise and fall. When you begin to reduce unnecessary speech, you may notice something surprising. Your presence becomes stronger. People listen more carefully when you speak less. Your words gain weight because they are no longer scattered. They are chosen with care. The roots of talking too much are restlessness, fear, ego, and habit. By seeing them clearly, we can begin to transform them. We can practice pausing before we speak, asking ourselves, is this necessary? Is this kind? Will silence serve better in this moment? In this way, silence becomes not a lack of expression, but the highest form of wisdom. Buddhist teachings on right speech and silence. In Buddhism, speech is never taken lightly. The words we choose carry consequences, not only for others, but also for ourselves. This is why the Buddha included right speech as one of the steps on the noble Eightfold path, the guide to end suffering. To practice right speech is to use our words with wisdom and compassion, but it also means understanding the value of silence. Right speech is described in 4 simple guidelines. Do not lie, do not use harsh words, do not gossip, and do not engage in idle chatter. At first, these may sound like rules meant only to keep society peaceful, but their depth goes much further. They point to the way words shape our mind. Every time we lie, we plant seeds of confusion in our consciousness. Every time we speak harshly, we nourish anger inside us. Gossip and idle chatter keep the mind restless and distracted. But the teaching does not stop at avoiding harmful speech. It also encourages us to speak truthfully, kindly, and with purpose. Words, when chosen with care, can heal, encourage, and bring clarity. A single sentence can lift someone from despair, while careless talk can push someone deeper into suffering. The Buddha compared words to arrows. Once released, they cannot be taken back. And yet, even truthful and kind words are not always necessary. Silence itself can be an expression of right speech. Sometimes the wisest thing we can do is say nothing. Silence is not a failure to respond, but a conscious choice that carries great strength. When you remain silent in the face of anger, you do not feed the fire. When you stay silent instead of gossiping, you protect both yourself and others. When you choose silence over unnecessary chatter, you create space for clarity. In the monasteries, monks are trained to see silence as a teacher. By speaking less, they learn to listen more deeply, not only to others, but to the subtler truths of life. They discover that many questions dissolve on their own when given the quiet space of reflection. In this way, silence is not emptiness, it is fertile ground for understanding. One of the Buddha's most powerful demonstrations of teaching through silence is found in a story often called the Flower Sermon. Instead of giving a long discourse, the Buddha simply held up a flower. Most of the audience waited for words, but one disciple, Mahakasyapa, simply smiled. In that moment, he understood. Truth cannot always be explained. Sometimes it can only be experienced in silence. This story shows that silence can transmit wisdom where words fail. It is a reminder that not every thought needs expression, not every experience needs explanation. In fact, speaking too much about deep insights can weaken them. Some truths must be lived in the quiet corners of the heart. Right speech, therefore, is not only about how we speak, but also about when we choose silence. It is about knowing the right moment, the right words, and the right intention. Practicing this awareness transforms our relationships. People feel safer with us because they know we do not waste words, we do not use speech carelessly. Our silence becomes a shield, and our words, when spoken, become treasures. Through this teaching, Buddhism invites us to look at silence not as an absence, but as part of the path itself. Right speech and silence are not opposites, they are partners. Together they guide us toward a life of clarity, compassion, and peace. The dangers of revealing too much. There is a subtle trap hidden in our daily conversations, the need to reveal more than is necessary. We talk about our plans before they are real. We share our struggles before we have resolved them. We expose our private life as if it were meant for public display. On the surface, it feels harmless, but Buddhism teaches us to look deeper. Every word we release carries energy, and revealing too much can quietly drain our strength. When we tell others about our intentions before acting, we sometimes weaken our resolve. Instead of focusing our energy inward, we spread it outward through words. Our goals become dependent on how others react. Their approval, their doubts, their judgments. If they encourage us, we may feel motivated, but if they criticize us, we lose confidence. By speaking too soon, we give away the power that should be fueling our action. Revealing personal struggles can also bring unexpected harm. Of course, sharing with a trusted friend or teacher can bring healing, but when we expose our pain carelessly, we risk misunderstanding. Others may not know how to hold our vulnerability, and their words, even unintentional ones, can deepen our wounds. Silence in these moments is not repression, but protection. It gives us the space to process before seeking the right support. Buddhism places great emphasis on guarding the mind. Just as we lock the doors of our house, we must also protect our inner world. Speaking without awareness is like leaving the doors open for anyone to enter. Not everyone who listens wishes us well. Some may use our words against us, others may distort them, and many simply will not understand. By being silent about certain aspects of our life, we preserve our peace and protect the sanctity of our inner journey. There is also the danger of gossip turning back upon us. When we speak too freely about others or reveal secrets that are not ours, we create a cycle of mistrust. In Buddhism, this is seen as planting negative seeds that eventually ripen into suffering. If we expose too much, we not only weaken ourselves, but also risk harming those around us. On a deeper level, revealing too much prevents true intimacy with ourselves. We become so busy narrating our life to others that we forget to live it. Experiences lose their depth when they are constantly translated into words. Silence allows us to savor them fully. A moment of joy, for instance, grows richer when we keep it in the heart, unspoken, like a hidden jewel. The Buddha advised restraint in speech not because words are bad, but because they are powerful. Every unnecessary revelation scatters energy, while silence gathers it. To remain silent about certain parts of our life is not secrecy, it is wisdom. It is the understanding that not everything needs to be shared, that some truths are more alive when kept within. In our modern culture, where oversharing has become common, this teaching is more relevant than ever. Social media encourages constant exposure of our meals, our travels, our emotions, our private lives. But each time we reveal, we give a piece of ourselves away. The strength of silence lies in keeping some parts of our life sacred, untouched by the noise of opinions. By practicing silence in this way, we learn to stand strong within ourselves. We discover that our worth is not in how much we reveal, but in how deeply we live. The less we expose, the more we preserve our power. Silence becomes a form of dignity, a shield that protects our inner freedom. Protecting your energy and inner peace. Energy is one of the most precious resources we have. It is the force behind every thought, word, and action. Yet most people give it away unconsciously every day. We spend it through constant talking, explaining ourselves, and engaging in conflicts that do not serve us. Buddhism reminds us that protecting our energy is essential for inner peace, and silence is one of the most powerful ways to do so. When we speak without awareness, we leak energy. Every story we tell, every argument we enter, every unnecessary detail we share is like pouring water from a jar. Soon the jar is empty, and we feel drained without knowing why. But when we learn to hold back, to stay silent when silence is wiser, we preserve that energy. It gathers inside us, giving us strength, clarity, and stability. Inner peace cannot survive in a restless mind. If we are constantly caught in chatter, whether external or internal, our energy becomes scattered. We feel tired, anxious, and disconnected. Protecting our peace means learning to step away from the noise, both outside and within. This does not mean rejecting others, but rather choosing carefully how and when we engage. Silence is the filter that allows only what is necessary to pass through. The Buddha often spoke about guarding the senses. Just as a wise person protects their home, we are asked to protect the gates of our mind. Words are one of those gates. When we allow too many careless words to flow out, we leave ourselves vulnerable. But when we choose silence, we strengthen our boundaries. We decide what deserves our attention and what does not. Think of it like tending to a flame. If we expose the flame to too much wind, it will flicker and die. But if we protect it carefully, it will grow strong, steady, and bright. Our energy is the same. When we expose it through endless talk and explanations, it weakens. When we guard it with silence, it becomes a steady fire that nourishes our peace. Protecting our energy also means being mindful of the conversations we enter. Not every discussion is worth our time, and not every opinion deserves a response. Buddhism teaches us to act with wisdom, to recognize when speech is necessary and when silence will serve better. In this way, silence becomes a form of self-respect. We no longer waste our energy on arguments or distractions that steal our peace. At the same time, silence allows us to cultivate compassion. By protecting our own energy, we are better able to care for others without resentment or fatigue. Inner peace is not selfish. It is the foundation from which true kindness grows. A mind that is drained cannot give, but a mind that is rested and silent can share love freely. In our busy modern lives, protecting energy has never been more important. Information is constant, conversations are endless, and the pressure to share is heavy. But you always have the power to choose silence. Each time you remain quiet instead of reacting, you save energy. Each time you keep a part of your life private, you protect your peace. Silence teaches us that our energy is sacred. It is the foundation of our well-being, our clarity, and our strength. When we protect it, we create a life rooted in calm and balance. And in that stillness, we discover that true peace is not something we chase. It is something we cultivate moment by moment in the quiet strength of silence. Silence as a tool for wisdom and self-mastery. Silence is more than the absence of sound. It is a discipline, a practice, and a path to mastery over the self. In Buddhism, silence is not about withdrawal from life, but about engaging with it more deeply. It sharpens perception, cultivates patience, and reveals wisdom that constant chatter hides. When we remain silent, we begin to notice the patterns of our own mind. Thoughts rise like waves, some calm, some stormy. Without silence, these thoughts often spill out through words before we even understand them. But in silence, we see them clearly. We learn that not every thought deserves to become speech. This awareness is the beginning of self-mastery. Silence teaches us control. Many conflicts in life are born not from action, but from reaction. A careless word, spoken in anger, can destroy trust in seconds. But silence offers a pause, a space to choose. In that pause, wisdom can enter. Instead of reacting blindly, we respond with clarity, or we decide not to respond at all. This is true strength, the ability to master ourselves instead of being mastered by impulses. Wisdom also grows in silence because silence allows listening. Most people listen only to reply. Their minds are already preparing an answer before the other has finished speaking. But when you practice silence, you learn to listen without rushing, without judgment, without the need to add your voice. In that deep listening, truths are revealed that words alone cannot express. Great Buddhist teachers often remind their students that wisdom cannot be poured into the mind through lectures alone. It must be discovered within, and silence is the key to that discovery. Meditation, for example, is nothing more than structured silence. It is sitting quietly, watching the breath, observing the mind, and allowing deeper understanding to surface. Without silence, meditation would not exist, and without meditation, wisdom would remain hidden. Self-mastery also means freedom from the ego's constant need to be seen and heard. The ego thrives on attention, and speech is one of its favorite tools. We speak to prove ourselves, to show our knowledge, to assert our importance. But in silence, the ego loses its stage. This can feel uncomfortable at first, but over time it becomes liberating. You realize that your worth is not measured by how much you say, but by the depth of your being. Practicing silence is not easy. At first, the mind resists. It wants to fill the space with noise, explanations, stories, and excuses. But as with any discipline, consistency brings transformation. The more you practice silence, the more you begin to see its effects. Calmer emotions, clearer thoughts, stronger presence. People begin to notice a quiet power in you, not because of what you say, but because of the stillness you embody. In Buddhism, mastery over the self is seen as the highest victory. Conquering the world means little if you cannot govern your own mind. Silence is one of the sharpest tools for this victory. It teaches restraint, focus, and awareness. It turns the restless mind into a steady flame. It allows wisdom to emerge naturally, like water clearing once the mud settles. To embrace silence as a tool is to choose growth over comfort, wisdom over noise, mastery over impulse. It is to walk a path where every word is chosen, every pause is honored, and every silence becomes a teacher. In this way, silence is not emptiness but fullness, a fullness of strength, clarity, and freedom. Stories and lessons from Buddhist monks. Buddhist monks have long shown that silence teaches more than words ever can. Their lives are living examples of how quietness shapes wisdom and compassion. One story tells of a young monk who asked his master endless questions about enlightenment. The teacher never answered. He simply stayed silent. At first, the monk grew angry, but over time he began to see that the silence was the answer itself. When the noise of his mind faded, understanding arose naturally. Another well-known lesson comes from the practice of noble silence. During retreats, monks remain completely silent for days. At first it feels unbearable, but as the mind settles, peace appears. In that silence they begin to hear life itself, the rhythm of breath, the sound of the wind, the heartbeat of existence. A third story speaks of a monk who was insulted by a passerby. He stayed calm and silent. Later he said, "If someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, who does it belong to?" His silence wasn't weakness, it was wisdom, the power of not feeding conflict. Through these stories we learn that silence is not emptiness, but awareness. It protects what is sacred, deepens understanding, and nurtures compassion. The monks remind us that silence is a teacher that speaks without words. And if we listen, it can transform us completely. Bringing the power of silence into daily life. Silence isn't something that belongs only in temples or mountains. It's a power we can carry into our everyday lives, in the way we speak, listen, and act. The challenge isn't to escape the noise, but to stay peaceful within it. Start small. Take a breath before you speak. In that short pause, ask yourself, is what I'm about to say necessary? Is it kind? Those few seconds of silence can change everything. Conversations become softer, conflicts fade, and your words gain weight. Bring silence into your day. A few minutes without your phone, a walk without music, a quiet moment before bed. In that space, your mind settles, your energy returns, and your heart opens. Silence will slowly stop feeling empty, and start feeling alive. In relationships, silence is respect. Listening without interrupting can heal more than advice ever could. In work, silence brings clarity, it sharpens focus, and strengthens presence. And in your private life, silence is dignity, a way of keeping what is sacred protected. So don't see silence as distance, see it as strength, wisdom, and love. You don't have to reveal everything, explain everything, or speak to be heard. True peace doesn't shout, it whispers. And if this message spoke to you, share it. Let's spread the power of silence in a world that never stops talking, because sometimes the most powerful voice is the one that chooses to stay quiet.